Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm wicked excited to be here, and I'm gonna do my best. I know I've said it, I know I've said it before, but I'm really gonna try to keep this one short and to the point, short and sweet, with maybe a little bit of spice. We'll see. Okay, so as you know, I always usually start with a little story or something, like the inspiration, like where the show came from, like how did my brain come up with it? And as usual, it's just like everyday life, like something happens in life, some universal thing kind of happens. I make it personal, and then I try to share universal spiritual principles that maybe will help us to just, basically just get out of our own way and stop being maybe a little nicer to each other and leading with more love and spreading more love in the world. Okay. So, you know how like somebody like text messages you or send you an email or a voicemail or what, a Voxa, like some, WhatsApp, some sort of communication. Well, I got a text like the other day, and all of a sudden, I found myself responding very quickly with a little bit of sarcasm, like trying to be funny, like, because there's certain people, like, first of all, if you're a New England kid or a Masshole, like sarcasm is just like, it's almost like a default mode sometimes. You've practiced that so often that the neural network in your brain, like that is I think of it like being thick. I'm like, that is a very well-traveled neural network to respond with sarcasm. So, but it was really sarcasm to make the other person laugh. But even still, like I stopped myself. And I stopped myself because, as I was saying, sarcasm is easy for me. But that's not how I always want to respond. It's not how I always want to communicate. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I like to be a little fresh. But just by knowing me, there'll be times when I say to people, I'm not being fresh. I say it all the time. I'm not being fresh. And I thought to myself, well, if you have to lead with I'm not being fresh to like put them on alert, is that because you're fresh a lot? Now, look, being fresh is fun sometimes, but it's not always the appropriate thing. Okay, but because sarcasm is so like kind of automated in my brain, and it can be a very automated response. And like double amen hands, if you grew up anywhere pretty much in like New England, like it's guaranteed, right? That a lot of people, and I remember my sweetie saying to me, we both lived out in Los Angeles. We both lived out in California for long periods of time. And he was saying that when he first moved out there, that his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends at the time, and people that he knew, like they just kind of didn't get like the whole sarcasm thing. Like to them, they're like, why is that even a thing? Like, why would you want to talk to people that way? And I found this so fascinating. And we get rewarded a lot. We get rewarded a lot for our sarcasm, for being fast, for being quick, for being witty, for being able to poke the bear with a stick. I don't like that. But we know how to little zingers, you know what I'm talking about? But here's the thing. As a writer and as a communicator, I want to be more intentional with my words. I want to not just do things habitually. I think that there's a lot of things that get patterned into us that are really good, like learning how to drive a car, riding a bike, tying our shoes, being able to like do certain things, There's certain neural networks that get created in our brains. We become so patterned and habituated, we can do those things without even thinking. Like nobody really, I shouldn't say nobody, most people really don't have to think about when they go to brush their teeth, right? We know how to do it. It's so automated, like it's like we're little robots, right? But I want to be able to stop and think about what I'm about to say, what I'm about to do, what I'm about to communicate. I want those thoughts, words, and actions to actually represent what's in my heart, what's on my mind, like how I truly feel, how I want to be in the world, not just from what I've always done, or this is just how it is, or because I wasn't thinking. You know what I mean? Okay. So the other day I was thinking about this, and I was like, sometimes you just better stop before you start, And that's what I thought to myself when I went to text back. I was like, stop before you start running your mouth. Stop before you start making your little jokes. Stop before you say something that you might, that might get misinterpreted or it wasn't actually what you meant. Like, stop before you start getting yourself in trouble, type of a thing. You know what I mean? And so I thought that this could be applied to greater circumstances, and it could also be wicked helpful. So I'm going to kind of come at this from a couple of different directions because I don't think enough of us, especially in this day and age of the internet and social media and whatever, and just people's nervous systems. Like, this is one of the things I always say to people, like, we are not meant to live at the speed of gigabytes, right? Like, information travels so fast these days, and people have kind of become uncomfortable with having to wait for a response. People are impatient. People expect immediacy, like right now, respond, do this thing faster, 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 faster. I'm like, those are machines. Those are computers, right? That's not humans. Like, I always say, like, I shouldn't have to like hurry up and respond because you are like impatient, or like you throw an emergency in my, like, your emergency, you're trying to make it my emergency. I'm like, yeah, no. So the world is moving at such a fast clip that we sometimes just do things automated. We don't even think about it. And so my whole thing is about, like, sometimes we just got to stop. We got to put on the brakes. So these are kind of some of the things I ask myself when I find myself about to, like, let's say, write an email, make a post on social media, send out my newsletter, do a podcast, talk to a friend. Before I open my big fat mouth, something that I often say to myself is, you better stop before you start, right? So I want to ask myself these things, like, how's my nervous system right now? Like, where's it at? Where's my mind at? How am I feeling? Because sometimes, in different like programs, like 12-step programs and stuff like that, they'll often say to people, like, are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you lonely? Are you, whatever, like, what's going on inside of you? Because before you make a decision that you can't unmake, you know what I mean? You like slow down and ask yourself, like, what's going on inside of you? So I like to make sure that I am not responding or reacting to things from a place of fear. I want to be able to choose them from a place of, like, yeah, this is a choice that I'm consciously making. I'm not just reacting from my history. I'm not reacting from my trigger or my trauma. I'm not reacting from, this is just how I've always done it. If I have an attitude, like, sometimes you need a little attitude adjustment. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I want to be able to stop. And before I start running my mouth, before I start typing with my little fingers, before I hit record, I want to be mindful. I want to be thinking about some shit. So what's going on inside of me? Because if I'm feeling agitated, if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling impatient, there is no doubt that that is going to affect my tone of voice. It's going to affect my brevity, or how long I write a thing, how friendly I'm being, or how open I'm being, how vulnerable and warm and compassionate and connecting. So if I'm offline, if my nervous system has been hijacked and I'm in like some sort of fear loop or doing some weird shit up in my brain and my body's not feeling great, of course it's going to affect like how I respond, how I talk, all those things. So I always like to check in with myself and say, like, okay, might it be smarter to wait a little bit to send this sucker? Do you want to wait till you get a good night's rest, right? Don't just make this impulsive response. Don't just make this impulsive decision. Like, stop before you start and get yourself in trouble. You know what I mean? So that's number one. So number two, we want to just pause and reflect before we take action. And some of the things we want to consider are like, what's really the point of this thing? Like, what's the purpose of this thing? What's my goal and my objective with this communication, with this whatever I'm about to do, this action I'm about to take? Like, think about, like, what do you really, excuse me, what do you really want to have happen? What's the goal? What's the objective? We don't control the outcome 90 whatever % of the time. But what we put into it, how we start a thing is sometimes how we can end a thing. So like if we're going to start it, we want to be doing it from a place that actually reflects, the thing we're going for. Like, is the outcome that I want, is this thing I'm about to think, say, and do, is it in alignment with that potential outcome? And we also have to be thinking about the potential consequences of not stopping, like just starting. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of times, especially again, when we go back to this speed of information thing, you get a message and you don't even think, like, especially with like Voxer or something like that can be a little more stream of consciousness, like when you can just hit record and you can talk out loud for 15 minutes uninterrupted. And the person on the receiving end, right, has to just like listen to you go on and on and on and on and on. Now, I personally don't mind getting longer messages, especially if they're telling me good stories or there's good points or that we're playing catch up or we're brainstorming. That I don't mind that. But there are times when people just like run their mouths without thinking, right? It's like put a comma in your commentary, right? Just put a comma in your commentary and pause for a moment. Okay. Because we want to be talking about like the consequences, but have you thought about the goal, the outcome, what you're really trying to accomplish? And have you thought about the potential consequences of what your attitude, your tone of voice, the words you're choosing, what you're about to say back, right? Did you stop before you started? And did you think about it? How is this going to land for them? We can't control how other people respond, but we can control when we send it, how we send it, what words we choose, what we do, right? With those thoughts, those words, and those actions. And here's just another final one. I'm going to wrap this up because this is the thing. So I find that I don't know if it's just you. I don't know if you have this experience too, double amen hands. I try to be a really thoughtful communicator. So when I go to send somebody an email, especially if I'm trying to communicate important things to them, like for example, in the nest, right? So my spiritual mentoring group program and community. So we have calls every other week. And so when I send out the time, I'm like, all right, I need them to know. First of all, the call is coming up this week. This is what day it is. This is what time it is. This is how long it is. Like, this is where it's happening. Here's the Zoom link, blah, 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 blah. Here's what they're going to need for the call. Try to show up on time, whatever. I think of all the information that I'm trying to communicate. And I always say to myself, how can I make this almost foolproof? How can I make this so that there will be no follow-up questions? How can I do work up front that's going to save me work on the back end because I was a shitty communicator? So here are some of the tricks and tools that I use. And I'm going to tell you what they are first. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And so just sit tight about this. Buckle up. Okay. So when I'm sending an email, there's a couple of things that I do. Number one, if I'm usually sharing a lot of different information, like a place, a time, or whatever, a link, I number them. I literally make it so their brain has to go, number one, okay, here's the date and the time. Number two, here's how long the thing is, or whatever it is. Here's the location. This is where the studio is. Like, I literally try to think of everything. This is what you're going to need to bring. Number three, you know what I mean? I try to really, really simplify it. I often will use bold in my emails because people don't pay attention. Most people's minds are moving so fast. This is the generation, right, of like TLDR, too long, didn't read, which to me is just like, I don't think I've ever written that in my life except to reference it about somebody else or something else. I'm like, no, I will read everything. Like, I read the things. You know why? Because I'm a reader. I'm a reader and a writer. I love words. So like, I will read it. So many people skim. So many people read fast, don't really read. They half-ass read. They don't pay attention, whatever. So I already know what the internet, social media, just people's nervous systems, how everybody's kind of amped up, stressed out, anxious, whatever. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible. Make it so that they can't like miss it. I will number things. I will write things in bold. I will create space. So as a writer, right? As somebody who's writing a memoir, I write in full paragraphs, right? When we read books, not all books, because children's books, hello, or books that are writing in a slightly different thing, poetry, whatever. But people who write like usually novels, self-help books, memoirs, prose, we write in actual full paragraphs. Our brains are used to reading sentence after sentence after sentence after sentence after sentence after sentence, break, new paragraph, sentence after sentence after sentence. I know that most people, they'll be like, yeah, too long, didn't read, or like, meh, 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 meh. So I'm like, okay. So what I do is I break things up. You will notice if you get a newsletter or an email from me, I tend to write in like one sentence chunks because it creates a lot of white space and it helps people's eyes and brains to like take it in. And there's no way, it's just like, oh yeah, I can just read that. When you give people chunks of copy, it seems these days, like they just can't handle it, right? And they won't read it. So I have these little workarounds and I stop before I go to send an email. I stop and I say, okay, how can I clearly, concisely, whatever, communicate this to the best of my ability? Make it so everything they need is in this thing, right? You would be amazed. Now, it's one thing when I'm delivering information. Sometimes people might have a follow-up question about like just very things that are unique to them, right? Like, hey, I need to leave a little early, or is this okay if I do this? Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like deliver the information. What makes me mental, what makes me insane, just little side by here. Here's what makes me mental. When I'm trying to get information from somebody, when I'm trying to find out when a thing is, how long it is, what's going on, where's the thing, how do we do, whatever. When I'm trying to extract information and get something, answers from somebody, I write to them in the same exact way. I will bold it. I will sometimes use yellow highlighter. Here are my 3 questions, and I will number them. When I tell you the amount of times that people either say they're going to get back to me by a certain day and they don't, and then they never get back to me. Like maybe it's like, whatever, you have to like prompt them. And I get it. People are busy. Like I get it. But either they don't respond, or if they do respond, they'll only answer like one question. I'm like, what about these other 2? Because now I'm going to have to do a follow-up email because you didn't slow down and read what I'm asking you. Now, I'm totally fine if they say to me, hey, all of these questions are answered on the Q&A page on my website. Here's the link. Or if they even just say, go to my website, you'll find it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, as long as I have access to it. But most people do not stop before they start to respond and see what this person is really asking of them. People do not pause, they do not breathe, they do not think, and they do not be. And my thing is like, I encourage people. I was just talking to somebody on the phone about this the other day. I encourage people, try to put yourself in another person's shoes. Try to put yourself on the receiving end of this thing. Try to imagine what it's like to be the other person. And if we could do that, not only would we be better communicators if we stopped before we started, but we would literally have a different experience in the world. I wish that so many people in the world would stop and try to put themselves in other people's shoes, because I think if we did that and we actually gave a shit and we actually cared, I know a lot of us do, but half the country doesn't seem to, right? You know what I'm talking about. We would be a lot more compassionate. if we stop thinking about just me and mine and ours and how my experience and what I want from my kids, my family, my thing, my religion, my people, my what, we would have a totally different experience if people would just stop, pause, breathe, think about these things. What do I really want? How do I want the other person to feel? This is the other thing, right? That we have to ask ourselves. It's like, okay, how do I want them to feel to be on the receiving end of this? What do I want them to know? How do I want them to feel? What action, if any, do I want them to take? If more of us did this, if more of us communicated intentionally, and again, we can use, I just use the example of sarcasm because that's easy. It's an automatic thing. I don't have to think about being sarcastic. I don't have to think about it. Like my brain, I'm already, my fingers could just start typing before I even have like noticed like the smart ass thing that's about to come out of my mouth, right? But I try to train my brain. I try to train my mind, right? A Course in Miracles says an untrained mind, right? An untrained mind can accomplish nothing. And I don't want, like, in yoga, I think it was in the Bhagavad Gita, but Swami Kripalu says it too. It talks about like the consequences of being yourself. And when I think of that, in this case, I'm talking about the consequences of you being your ego personality. Not the true self, who you really are, the eternal, loving, kind, compassionate, happy, healthy, healed, whole, holy self. I'm not talking about that capital S self. I'm talking about this little ego personality self that we tend to identify with. This body where we grew up, our money, our people, our family, our accents, our whatever, like all of this is who I am. This is who I am. You're more than just who you are and how you were raised. You know what I'm saying? There's more to you than that. And that's the thing that we want to really stop before you start just running down your patterned avenue, like, right, your ways of being that you've always done. We have an opportunity to renew, to remake, right? When we talk about this concept, and I don't mean it religiously, but this opportunity to be reborn, to have a clean slate, like in every moment. We tend to think about it like on our birthdays, like, oh yeah, new personal, new year. And then like, whether it's the Gregorian calendar New Year in January or the Chinese New Year or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, clean slate, new year. You could have a new year, new you in any moment when you decide to cut the shit and stop before you start. And of course, we can apply this to stop before you start being lazy and break your word to yourself and not get off your ass and go for that walk. Stop before you start drinking, before you pick that shit up, before you start light up that smoke, before you shove that Twinkie ho-ho, Susie Q cupcake thing in your mouth. Stop before you start. And if you don't know how to stop, there's lots of tools out there for doing that, right? Lots of tools, lots of coaches, mentors. I'm raising my hand. Hello, mentors, people out there that can help you. That can help you to make different choices. My brother, my sister, choose again. Choose differently. That is available to you at any time. Not if you don't stop first, not if you're not aware first. You got to slow down to go fast. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm going to end it there. I hope this was helpful in some way. It's just something that was on my mind. I went for a walk run earlier, and I was thinking about the show. And then again, the text, this is my spiritual team, STOTJ. They're always helping me out with like show ideas and stuff like that. So I hope this was helpful in some way for you. And I super duper appreciate you. If you're still here, listening to the sound of my voice, thank you for being here. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And like I said, if you ever want to work with me, I'm wicked easy to find, KarenKenney.com. Just spell my last name right, Kenney. And then you're there. It's easy, right? Lots of ways to see what I'm up to, what I'm offering, what's going on. Yeah, that's it. I got all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes. I've been doing a lot of writing, trying to get the first draft of this memoir finally done. I might be offering some writing salons, some writing, little mini writing, like we could call them workshops, but it's more like, like salons. Like we get together for like 2 hours and we write online. I might do some in person here in New Hampshire, but I'm also going to be offering them online. So if you're a writer or somebody who wants to write and you want to write in community, and etc., I'll be telling you more about that as well. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I'm sending you lots of love. Wherever you go, may you leave the animals, may you leave the people, the environment, the planet, and yourself better than how you first found it. Wherever you go, may you and your love, your presence, your energy, your spirit, your heart, like who you are, may it be a blessing. Bye.